that re-evaluating our rural communities' vulnerability to fire. Obviously this is what is necessary at the moment, and I just wanted to reflect really what I'd seen from way back here in northern New South Wales on towns that have been totally decimated and even more so put at risk by having what looked like forests coming, or burnable tree areas coming right up to the edge of towns. And as much as I really value forest, I feel that we should be more sensible and learn from this mistake, that there's an opportunity to redesign the way we create our communities, particularly in the light of the fact that the fires seem to be racing after the gases which are going ahead of them with these huge fast winds, like 90-mile-an-hour winds are pushing oxygen and gas from the forest that have been overheated in the heat wave and then the fire. I feel that maybe, I'm not an expert, but I feel like we should be evaluating the amount of space we have around our towns, our country towns, that are actually in these forest areas. And one way would be to have a pasture area around the town of possibly 1 kilometre or whatever, half a kilometre might be enough, whatever's enough by scientific approaches to actually safeguard a town from that kind of flame and gas movement, rapid movement on a high wind into a community. That's my idea, just a thought on it, and I think creative ideas on that. It probably needs people to pool their resources a little. It might be that grazing pastoralists, etc., might decide that they would be happy to contribute to the safeguarding of town by taking a lot within that surround area of the town, and so they could give over part of their land to forest maybe, and then in exchange have forest cut where that was and turn it back into pasture, so that you've got your pasture ring around a community. It won't obviously work for every town, but that sort of approach is one idea that I feel like might safeguard future situations for communities.
So those pastures could be for vegetables?
Whatever you feel like. If you want to be cabbages, if you can do a kilometre of cabbages and everything else, sure. But what I see is currently in operation, not that I want to necessarily propagate, but what's actually happening is pasture. Is like we have stock that are grazing there. Could be any number of situations, that like a fanning or a pie shape around a town, or more like a donut shape around a town. The town is in the middle of the donut. The donut area is broken up into different types of land use that won't burn, and it won't carry gas.
I love it. And that also gets over a big milestone for community living, where the reality, unfortunately today, is all the food that we eat is grown hundreds and hundreds of kilometres away from where the people are, and then it's shipped off to different destinations and does a big circuit, and then we have to pay fuel levy on top of our food. Whereas if each of our communities had this design layout where the food is surrounding the people, food's where the people are, makes life a lot cheaper to exist and to eat.
Well, that creates work as well. It creates the income, the jobs, the activities, even if it's part-time. Could be part-time with studies, whatever the realities of the community are, for sure.
And that's on the ground, on-site location, directly relevant to the people who would live there in that community.
And it would be site-specific as well, because obviously some people are on ridges and there's all kinds of situations. But there is a need for rethink of the amount of forest you've got coming up to residences, etc.
You could have a much more local trade agreement with neighbouring towns, sites where the contours might be more ideal for rice or grains or
whatever it is, yeah.
Those of you watching here in the future, we're now in February 2009. We're in Australia, in Byron Bay, which is about sort of up the top we're having floods, down south we're having a lot of bushfires. And so bushfires is on a lot of people's minds. There's a lot of fundraising going on around Byron and around Australia for people affected by this. And this idea is basically to save towns from bushfires. And yeah, it's topical. It's a proactive way that we can do this. Matching it with community gardens sounds fantastic. Pasture, of course, it's an option. Veggie versus carnivore, omnivore. But yeah, it sounds great. Great idea for fire. I love bush. Maybe if we can find ways not to need to make these doughnuts out of what is currently native bush. But finding ways to do this would be great, even if, you know, we regenerate and if there is a little bit of angle grinding on the bush. Hopefully not, but the concept's out there. Feedback welcome.
Well, yeah, food miles is a massive issue. Food miles, yeah, it's one of the issues of now in the future. It's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. In terms of the craziness that's happening now, fresh salads are being flowing in every day from Kenya to the UK. It's just one example. Destroying the environment, it's just insanity. Sort of ring-fenced towns with a fireproof zone, yeah, so it's a win-win situation. If you can grow food and at the same time protect against bushfire, great. Absolutely.
There is an option. There is an option also to look at types of trees that won't burn so easily as well, depending on the region. Whether if it's Queensland, then you're looking at like maybe dense rainforest situations that won't burn so well. Lots of ginger, lots of palms, etc., which is what happens in a rainforest. But it depends on, there may only be room for small corridors of that sort of situation. But I'm not a great expert. I don't pretend to be on that level. So I think that would be left up to people who could wear that type of important research.